Good afternoon, everyone, from the IBD Newsroom. Welcome to Stock Market Today, sponsored by Interactive Brokers. On today's show, we're going to take another look at bullish gains for the major stock indexes, as well as a solid breakout for Intel. We're going to take a look at Alphabet ahead of its earnings report next week, and also take a look at a powerful breakout for ResMed. Hi everyone, Ken Shreve here along with Ed Carson. And Ed, Thursday's after-hour session, we saw kind of a crummy earnings report from Amazon.com. We saw the stock down about 9% late Thursday, so it's pretty ironic to see a new high for the NASDAQ 100 today. Yeah, the NASDAQ 100, which includes the biggest tech names, including Amazon, Apple, and Microsoft, that actually hit a record high today. The S&P 500, which we're going to be taking a look at, that actually got to within 1 point of an all-time high. The NASDAQ itself, it's pretty close, just a few tenths of a percent off of a high, and Dow's lagging a little bit, but very nice action. And, what we're seeing is just Amazon, which was down 9%, only fell, 1 or 2% by the close. And, chips continue to do very strong. Mm-hmm. All right, well, let's see where we closed. NASDAQ Composite looks like a gain of about 0.7%. You mentioned S&P 500, very close to an all-time closing high. Not quite. It ended with a 0.4% gain to 3022. Its all-time closing high was 3025. The Dow Jones also had a good session, up about 0.6%. We mentioned an all-time closing high for the NASDAQ 100. That ended with a gain of about 0.8%. So taking a look at a chart of the S&P 500 here, Ed, there's actually quite a lot to like about this stock market. Yeah, because we're in a situation where we're hitting resistance at just the September peak, let alone the July levels, and so we're getting above the September peak. I think the NASDAQ poked above it. I don't know where it closed exactly in that situation, but that's a sign we're moving there, because that's one issue. The rally, we've come up to record highs, and sometimes we've actually made record highs, but then we sort of slump over. So it'll be really nice to see if we can break through that and then really power on to really show that we're in a secular bull market, because we haven't all year. We're really not that far from the October 2018 highs. Mm-hmm. After all the rallies and this and that, we're not that much above it. Well, the market obviously chose to focus on a very bullish earnings report from Intel late Thursday. Again, we had weak earnings from Amazon Thursday. That was countered by a bullish earnings report from Intel. So why don't we start by taking a look at Intel. We had a bullish breakout for the Dow component, a bullish gap up for the stock, and it. Well, why don't you just talk about the action in the stock today? Yeah, Intel was sort of in the middle of its space, and it blasted up like 7 or 8%. Really powerful move, much stronger than it was after hours last night. So it was really impressive. The earnings and sales just edged higher, but they were expected to decline. So this was a positive sign. Their guidance for the fourth quarter also strong. And yeah, you can see this. You can see that breaking out. It's not at a record high yet, and it really hasn't been a leader in 2019. But still, it is a huge company. This is a positive sign. We saw AMD going up. We saw NVIDIA moving higher. Chip Gear is the real leader in that situation. But if Intel's doing well, that's probably a good sign for Chip Gear as well. So very positive action there. Well, a lot of chip stocks have been breaking out. You mentioned the fact that Intel really hasn't been a leader, but it certainly was a leader today. This was just an unequivocal, powerful breakout for Intel, and a big reason why the NASDAQ 100 outperformed today. Okay, moving on. We actually have 3 FANG stocks set to report earnings next week. We're going to talk about Google, but we also have Apple and Facebook also on deck with earnings next week. But let's take a look at Google parent Alphabet, because it is setting up in a pretty good looking base ahead of earnings, and I think there's some optimism that we could see a strong quarter here. Yeah, it just got within about a point of a breakout, which when you're a stock at almost 2,000, that's at 1 point is hardly anything. But yeah, the earnings are only supposed to rise 4%, and overall revenue about 20%, depending on whether they're looking at overall or excluding certain costs. But this is, it'll be interesting to see if they can really outperform that, because it has been coming up. Relative strength line has been sort of steady in this consolidation, not powerful. Mm-hmm. It'd be really nice, because we've already had Amazon. Okay, it wasn't horrible, but it hasn't been doing well. Netflix was a total disaster. And so it'd be nice to see if Facebook and Google can be, if not super leaders, at least sort of keep pace and maybe
provide a little bit of oomph to the market.
All right, well, we'll see what Alphabet has to say next week. Again, we're also going to hear from Apple and Facebook as well. Also, Advanced Micro Devices set to report earnings next week as well. So next week we'll be busy in terms of earnings. All right, let's conclude by talking about ResMed. This is ticker RMD, and pretty nice breakout here as well, Ed.
Yeah, better than expected earnings last night. Sales growth has been accelerating for a few quarters. This is a maker of sleep apnea products, and it's been a winner a number of times. It had, you don't want to quite sleep on this stock. It had sort of a downward sloping flat base. It wasn't really looking like it was going to be, actionable heading into earnings, but busted through the 50-day line over a record high. And it's just nice action. It's not, it's not a huge earnings winner anymore. I think earnings rose 15%, which was nice, but it's nice to see it broadening out. Yeah, the chips are doing well, the home builders are doing well, the auto dealers, but as the market gains momentum, you see more and more leadership develop, and that's a positive sign.
Well, overall, I think you'd have to call it a pretty solid third quarter earnings season so far. Again, next week we'll be busy, but overall, I think you have to like the action in growth stocks here, and with indexes so close to highs, I think the bulls have reason to be optimistic. We'll see what next week holds.
Absolutely. Even the weak and beaten down software and some of those other names that just got hammered, they're at least not falling so much anymore. So there's just a lot of optimism going in right now.
All right. Well, very good. Thanks for all the analysis, Ed. That'll do it for today. I'd like to thank you very much for being with us. A couple of reminders. Our latest podcast with Arusha Paris dropped yesterday, Investing with IBD. His guest this week, good friend of mine, Joe Fahmy from Zor Capital. Really solid growth investor, smart investing guy. So be sure to check that out at investors.com/podcast. And also, as we do every Friday, don't forget to check out Investing Strategies with Alyssa Coram. She is in New York every week at the NASDAQ market site, and she'll have new videos on Monday. So that's Investing Strategies. Be sure to check that out at investors.com. All right, well, good solid week for the stock market. Thanks very much for joining us, and have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you back here on Monday.